Okay, no crazy song for me today. No waka waka. Hi, it's happy 7/7. It's the 7th of July, and we're here with Sherri Divband,
Hi, Sherri.
Hello. Hi.
um, CEO of Aramis Academy, writer of so many books. I don't even know how many books you have. You have some children's books, and then you have some more mature books as well, and a new book out that we'll get to talk about. I wanted to say hi and thank you, and it's so good to see you again. And you're just adorable and lovely and beautiful, and I love
Oh,
listening to you. So I'm really happy that you're here with us today.
thank you so much for having me on. I think this is long overdue. We've been trying to do this for a while, so I'm glad we finally got it together. Thanks for having me, both of you.
Yeah. So what's new for you? Anything exciting coming up? But
Oh gosh, there's always something going on. I have the Disclosure Now conference coming up. I think next week? I don't even know what today. The
yeah, it is next. I don't
Yeah,
know if people consider it next week or not because it's
I don't know. It's on the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th of July, and it's in St. Pete. So I'm excited. I think Brian just released the speaker lineup, the schedule rather. My goodness, this thing is massive. So I'm mixed in there somewhere in the middle. You could barely find me, but there's so many speakers. So that I'm looking forward to.
I'm looking forward to. This will be my first time I get to be like an MC. So
Yeah.
I might go on there like wicka wicka. No, I'm saying. And I'm like hoping that I can hold my tongue and don't make a horrible bad joke. Is what I'm hoping. So it's the Full Disclosure Now conference. It's in Serrata. Actually, I got a good price on my room. I'm really kind of hype about that. And
Yeah.
there's lots of rooms nearby. And she's right. There is a crazy lineup of speakers.
It's massive.
Yimei, I never saw her, but I'm totally looking forward to seeing her. Carrie Cassidy, Penny Bradley. You can't really discount anybody on this. You really
It's a
can't.
lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I'm really excited to see Matthew and Arkeem and Chris O'Connor again. It's quite a lineup. And ooh, there you go. And looking forward to seeing Sean Bond and oh wow. I don't know how to name it. Issa. Wow. Okay. Yeah. It's great. I'm glad that this happened. I'm glad it's working out, that it finally came into fruition because woo, it was like, are we gonna do this or not? But then now you got your book too. Did this
Yeah.
book just come out or is it out now today or
My newest book, Courage to Change the Freedom Movement, came out um, maybe a few weeks, maybe less than 2 weeks ago. It's very new. It just came out. So
oh,
I'm really excited about it. I'm already getting some good feedback from people who have read it already. And so I'm really excited to talk about it and at the conference. And I'm bringing some copies to sign and give out to people. So I'm excited about that too.
okay, so don't trip everybody. You need to look for this book. If you don't get it in person, you better get it online. So that's exciting. What is this one about? The courage to change.
So the last book last year, I released Star Seeds in the Great Awakening. So that was about predominantly New Earth children and star seeds in general. And I go through what we're going to talk about a little bit today, the different types of children and how we need to start delabeling children, why they're different, neurodivergent. And then I go into all the 3D interference that I learned about in my sessions, which is the middle of the book. And yeah, this is the one. And then at the end, I talk about the future and what I see through my sessions with my clients and what's coming. Not so much as of a prophecy, of more of a collection of information that I have gathered through working with clients for the last decade. And I put it in there of kind of what I'm seeing in the future coming. So that was last year. The reason I'm saying that is because this one is a continuation of that. So it's kind of a part two. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. There's a lot of thunder and there's a huge storm going on right outside my window. Um, you guys can hear me okay, right?
Oh, totally.
Okay. So Courage to Change the Freedom Movement is kind of a part two. So I get into 3D influence what are some of what's some of the psycho interference that we're seeing, the psychological warfare going on that with the dark players is how I refer to them as. And I talk a little bit more about children and basically how to heal. So a bulk of the book is how to heal your soul and techniques and protocols that I've put together myself over the last 15 years. And I explain to people how to do them, so you don't need to go outside of yourself. Everyone can do these things all on their own. And so I display it in the book. And then the end is kind of like, how do we pull this together? How do we have the courage to change so that we can facilitate this freedom movement that I believe is occurring right now? So it's a lot of information.
Okay, wow. We hear the thunder, but we can hear you perfectly clear. So don't worry. We'll give you like hand signals if we can't hear you anymore. Oh, wow. So this is absolutely amazing. I was talking to Mark and I was thinking to myself, like, wouldn't it be great if we can infiltrate these books into the prison system? Because I think some of the people there could use this information to understand how exactly they got there, because we're talking about this infiltration of the mind. People, me, not me, like these things that I'm doing and these actions, maybe it were children, adults, and people in that position could examine their lives to figure out, have they been influenced? And has this caused them to take this path? Or how people have been sabotaged in some way to become a part of this huge loosh system that we have.
Absolutely. I don't think people realize the extent of how we are programmed, manipulated, interfered with on a daily basis consistently all throughout our life, from the moment that we're born, even in womb, and our whole lives. We are messed with. There are so many things that they do to alter our reality, to keep up that illusionary veil that we have, because it is ultimately an illusion. But the great thing about it is that we have the power. And Eric and I were just, I don't want to plug someone else's book in my interview right now, but we were just talking about Mark Savas, my friend, and his book, The Monarchs, just came out. And he wrote this book, I think in like 2015 or something. And when we met years ago, he had a session with me. And anyways, he had a session with me, then we became friends. He started working as an Aramis mentor. And now I'm reading his book all these years later. We've known each other for like 3 years now. And there's so many synchronicities in his supposed fiction book, which we know a lot of this is based on truth. We just have to, under the guise of fiction. And I can't tell you how many synchronicities that are in his book that I have said in my, or learned about in my sessions, or I've talked about. He wrote about it subconsciously, or receiving downloads. So the point is that this is illusionary, but in his book, he talks about it, and I talk about this. We have the ability to break through any illusion. It's us. We have the power. We've just forgotten. We just have been programmed to believe that we aren't powerful, that we don't have the power to have the courage to change, to guide each other and to come together. And the book my last 2 books are really about informing as many people as I can on the different ways that we are programmed, because all it takes is the knowledge. Once you know, that breaks the spell. That's the thing about it. When people read my book, they're telling me I'm activating and awakening as I'm reading these books. This is incredible. And because it just takes a flicker of a moment or a switch to go off and say, oh, this makes sense. And then the illusion breaks down, and then it doesn't work anymore. So the more of us that we can activate and awaken to the lies, the less they work anymore, it's crazy. I think you're muted yourself.
You are absolutely correct. So I chose the term neurodivergent today because you were talking about removing labels. And in some cases, I find the labels useful when it comes to public opinion and expectation. But you're explaining how we can remove the actual labels. And when did you first become confronted with these so-called labels?
That's a really good question. So my journey has been in the very, very quick version, working with animals, doing animal communication, in animal nursing, working in ICUs, the zoo, general practice. So I learned a lot of healing practices for animals, Reiki, things like that. So my spiritual journey has really been at the core, been with animals. And so the reason that's important is that as I went through my career, I learned through animals that people are really in this period in our history where we are evolving and we need assistance and guidance. And so I was pushed by the animal kingdom to work with people more, less with them, more with people. So I gravitated over to people. And throughout that process, I started working with women to have more natural births. So I taught hypnobirthing. I became a master hypnotherapist. So I was doing regression therapy for years, helping people regress to their past life to help heal the present. And I learned so much throughout that journey. And so then I started attracting, unknowingly at the time, because I have 3 children. And although I could label them myself if I was following the system, they've never been labeled by anything. I wouldn't allow a doctor to do that. So I never had that challenge in my life where it was on the forefront of my thoughts, if that makes sense to anybody. It wasn't something I was thinking about. I just recognized that my children had differences and unique abilities, but I never really put into any category. Well, when my daughter was born and I was doing hypnobirthing, the universe started bringing me parents that wanted me to work with their nonverbal children because they received word from referrals. Oh, Sherri communicates with the higher self. And then these parents had the idea, not me, because I didn't advertise for this, oh, can Sherri help me communicate with my child? That's how it all started. And so I started to attract mothers and grandparents that wanted to have a session with me to see if I could get messages for their grandchild or their son or daughter that were nonverbal or autistic and really struggling. And so I started communicating with them, not having any idea what I was getting into. I really didn't. I just wanted to help these mothers in the beginning. And then it turned into 2, 5, 10, 30, hundreds over the years that I have now worked with. And I, in hindsight, I recognize that was just the beginning of my journey of helping to delabel the starseed children, because they're here for a reason, and they are being mislabeled and misinterpreted. And it's an epidemic in and of itself, or a pandemic, because this is worldwide. And so I believe I'm an ambassador for them to help people understand why they're here and why they struggle, because it's more than just about these poke things that they get. It's and the food and the toxins. It's more than that. It's so much more than that, that if we just take away the 3D aspect of it and we go just a little bit beyond to the 5D and beyond that energy, the density of consciousness, you'll see that there's evidence to show or express that they're actually exceptional and they're gifts. So they come into this reality to change, so they don't fit in. So in a 3D sense, they don't belong. There's something wrong with them. There's this neurodivergency that is an issue, and they need to be medicated. They need to be separated from other children. Something is wrong with them. And that's not the case at all. We're looking at it completely inverted, and we need to reverse and look at it from a completely different perspective. And once we do that, we'll see that these children aren't suffering. They're actually here to teach us. So so it really just kind of came into my life unexpectedly. But now that I look back, I realize it wasn't by accident.
And so the labels that you've seen how it hurts some children. I don't know if you would like to go any deeper into how the labels are actually hurting the children.
Yeah, I mean, it is, even for the children that are nonverbal, even the children that are very young, being diagnosed at, 1.5, 2 years old. Certainly the parents don't know any better a lot of the time. So I'm not putting down any parents, because we as parents want the best for our children, and we trust in the system. At least we have historically. Now we're waking up to it. And so we just want to help our children, because we recognize that they're not like the other children. They're doing different things. They act a different way. They won't look in your eyes, and they have all of these characteristics that are considered not normal. And so when these children are labeled, we don't realize, and I'm going to get into the real woo-woo stuff in a minute. So remind me to circle back, because I don't want to scare anyone out of this conversation. So let's start kind of in the midway point. once you label the child with something, ADHD or Asperger's, we don't even use Asperger's anymore, but whenever they're put on the spectrum in some way, or ADHD or dyslexia, or some label is given to them, what happens is that now separates them from the other children. And a lot of times they are taken away from the larger group, and they are placed with certain teachers, and they are treated more differently. They are often medicated. They are often seen more at they have the therapists, they have social workers, they have so many things depending on the varying degree of what they're where they are on the spectrum and how functional they are. But what we don't realize is it's causing a stigma. So they think there's something wrong with them. And instead, and it starts with the label. And that's what I'm trying to say. And it escalates as they grow up. So they think there's something wrong with them. And instead of them doing what they came here to do, which is to shine and shift and change, they recluse and they hide, and they don't want to be seen because they realize and recognize that they're different, because they've been told they're different their whole life. So they don't fit in, and they want nothing more than to fit in. And now we've created a dynamic where they aren't able to shine in the way that they were supposed to when they came here. Now they're scared, and they just want to be like everybody else. So it's a learning process, but the label is the marker point.
Is that possibly also a trigger for learned helplessness too? Like because you say, oh, well, she can't do that. And so they say, oh, I can't do that. They're being told that they can't be or do something. So now they adapt this kind of crutch-like behavior, or they adapt,
Absolutely. And that leads to the woo-woo stuff that I was talking about. So I believe, through my sessions, this is not a personal opinion, I have been shown this through countless sessions, that the dark players, as I call them, I refer to them in the book, there's just the system, the matrix, the ones that are trying to be in charge but are losing control day by day. They know that these children are high sensory, high vibrational, highly gifted, highly advanced, highly psychic, highly everything. And so that doesn't come without side effects or limitations when we're looking at it from a 3D perspective. So they want the parents and the children themselves to feel hopeless, so that they don't embrace and tap into their true potential. So they limit them. They cause this limitation within them, where they place them in the box, and then these children feel like they are not able to do what the other children are, and they therefore suppress the gifts that they have. And so it's kind of an agenda, I believe is the word that I'm trying to think of. It's an agenda that is created, again, by the label itself, which leads to the progression of helplessness, and then the gifts are turned off. And now we are in a situation where this beautiful soul who came in to influence us in a positive way is now blocked. They've turned it off because they don't want to be different. So therefore they are embracing that hopelessness. Oh, I can't do this. I can't go here because I can't do what the other children can do. I can't be in this classroom with the other children. I can't. It's all these doors are shut in their face. So the limitations are escalated as they get older, because then they are feeling more anxiety about these things that they can't do, which unmotivates them. Exactly. Feel hopeless and want to do, because then they just give up, and I work with a lot of teen and early, in the early 20s, that are high functioning as well as nonverbal, and living at home and completely non-functional, and everything in between. And a lot of them just want to give up. They just feel like they can't fight anymore. They don't know where they belong. They don't know where they fit in. They struggle day to day to find themselves. Who am I, and how do I fit in this world? And it's so sad, because that they've got it all wrong. They've been programmed to think that way, when in reality they came in to be different, to be the change, but they have lost the life spark in them, because they have been told. Again, it starts with the label. As soon as you heard them in the trajectory of I'm different, everything else, it's a cascade of negative influence, the 3D interference that I talk about. And they're able, when you feel like you are not in control and you have low self-esteem and low self-confidence, which I believe these children have as a result of all the things I mentioned, then you're more easily manipulated and vulnerable to subliminal messaging and all the programming. So in essence, they're getting programmed like the other children in the indoctrination schools, the loosh we talk about, the loosh farms. Just like the other children, they've just found a creative way to do it. And so a lot of the children who are medicated, unfortunately, get there much faster. I hope this makes sense.
It does make sense because, well, when you've told someone they're different and you told someone that they don't have the ability to be whatever the hell they're trying to say is normal, because I'm trying to tell you what's normal on planet Earth is not necessarily the best. So it's like we're spending our time trying to fit into what we think is normal when that is actually quite, I don't know. But that feeling of depression, you can't touch your God spark. You can't manifest. You can't, when you're in that low frequency now, because you've lowered the person's frequency by pretty much belittling them. It's like a curse, and pushing them into that state of depression. You can't really tap into your power, right? So it's loose. It's the same thing that we're all going through too. We're forced to go to jobs that are making us stressed out and unhappy, and we're not tapping into the fact that yes, we do have control over our lives and we can manifest and we can do all these things for ourselves. But these people are so much more energy sensitive that it actually drowns them. This loosh is literally, and I don't know, it's like living in agony basically for them with these issues.
So Sherri, so what happens then? Okay, I'm just going to use an example of a nonverbal child. And they came here as a starseed to make a difference. And they're caught up in a system that is not able to recognize it. So what would, as a parent, I'm now, how would you recognize or how would you start to bring out their abilities, because they're not from here, they're functioning in a 5D world. So what is the way to make the transition for them, or is there an answer to it? I know a couple of children who are like that, and it's like one who's nonverbal and one who is verbal. And so how does a parent, first of all, help, because we're just trying to get them to just enjoy life and they can't communicate it.
Yeah, and that beautiful question, Terry. Now that is the most important thing that we're talking about right now, is that exact thing, because there's a lot of elements to it. We got to talk about the dimensions of what you just said, because we can go in a lot of different angles. So I'm going to start with, why did these children come in the first place? So we've had this 3D matrix-like prison system going for a very long time. Debatable about how long it's been, but we can all agree at thousands and thousands upon thousands of years. We have been in this control system, this very negative masculine control, where the divine feminine has been very suppressed, and they do that through indoctrination. And we indoctrinate from a young age. That's why we go into the school, which is an anagram for loosh, like I talk about. And it's all about hijacking the mind at the most vulnerable point, because at the age of 6 to 7 is when the multidimensional aspect of any human being starts to anchor in their body. They start to they have the potential to lose the connection to their soul. They become more human. And that is where they hook them in. That's why kindergarten starts around 5 years old, so that they can make sure that they can trap them at that age, at a very vulnerable period, and start them in the herding system, where they are taught memorization, logic, left brain, analysis, memorization, testing, competition, stress, anxiety, all of that stuff. It's way too much pressure that they put on the 5-year-olds, but it's done intentionally. And this is what's been happening, and we know where it goes from there. So how do we break this cycle, Terry? We break this cycle by very specifically ascended beings coming into our reality with the specific characteristics for them to do specific things. That's why we have a spectrum of autism, because let's say we have a low functioning autistic, which I refer to as the Autist Collective. They are very dissociated on purpose. They are nonverbal. They're not really in their body. Many of them can't walk. They can't talk. They can't feed themselves. I'm talking about like the severe cases of the dissociation. Why do they do that? They do that so that their soul can come through the vessel of the body, but not really anchor into 3D, because they're not here to learn anything. So in our 3D sense, they're here to help and guide. So they come in and they anchor into the body just enough to keep it functional, but they're not really there. And why do they do this? Because they are holding the space for their family, for their caregivers, for the collective, by energetically influencing the environment through their frequency. So they emit waves of energy and frequency to shift people in a very passive way. They're teaching their parents, they're teaching their families, they're teaching the community. And then we have those that are more functioning, that can feed themselves, but let's say they're nonverbal and a little bit behind on some of the developmental delays, but nothing serious, but they're nonverbal. Those children come in to teach the collective about connecting through the heart space. So they are purposely not communicating with us verbally. They're reminding us of how they're retraining us. They're activating and awakening the adults to train us. How do we connect energetically? We have lost that ability through the programming because we use words, which words have spells, and they evoke, and I won't say, not just demons, just dark energy and create more loosh. And we don't realize that the words we say generate a lot of negative power, not for us, but for them. So they come in and they're like, I'm not going to speak your language. I'm going to train mom and dad at home first on how to communicate nonverbally, telepathically. How do we connect energetically? How can you recognize the subtle cues? How can we connect through the heart space? Starts with mom and dad and the siblings. And most families when I work with them, they communicate with their child just fine without even saying a word to each other. And the siblings, if there are siblings, they know they don't even need to say a word to each other. They know exactly what they need. They're teaching us something. They're teaching us the art of telepathy, the art of energetic connection of our soul to soul. So that's how we activate and awaken. Stop using words. We need to connect through the heart space. So they are not speaking our words for a reason. They are teaching us something, and they are resilient and stubborn, and they will not speak. Some will never speak. Some will wait and speak at 4 or 5 years old, maybe 2 years old. It depends on the soul's journey and how they're contributing. But there's a reason for it. Why do some come in and they're very high functioning, hyper intelligent, previously labeled with Asperger's? Well, they come in hyper focused, hyper diligent. They're here to reframe our network. They're architects. They're innovators of a new world. They don't want to be children. They don't want to look in other people's eyes, because they're too overwhelmed by the truth that they see within everybody. They see through these eyes. They see through the soul. And it's overwhelming for them and intimidating to be able to see all of Terry's thoughts and her entourage of entities, or someone else's demons. They tell me all the time, I won't look at someone's eyes because I see their demons. I see everything, and it's overwhelming for them. So they're choosing to look around you and connect energetically, but they're here to teach us how to rebuild paradigms. So I could talk about this for hours. There's so many elements. Like I said, this is multidimensional. But the point is that they all come in with a specific gift and a specific characteristic to influence the collective in that specific category. So collectively, we can all awaken, and we can all learn and activate the divine wisdom and knowing within us. And they're trying to teach us that. So the conundrum here, or the issue, if we want to use that word, is they're coming into a reality that is crumbling. So they are here to break it down. They are here to be part of the change. So it is on purpose. That's why there are so many of them And the statistics of autism are so high now, and it's supposed to ruffle feathers. It's supposed to scare parents. It's supposed to awaken them. So they say, hold on a second, I don't want to medicate my child anymore. I don't think the system is working. What you're saying to me doesn't make sense, and I want something more. They are supposed to shake the parents and the teachers and say, we turn around and say, I'm going to advocate for them. This is what's happening right now. The children are getting everyone's attention, and the parents are advocating, teachers are advocating, people like myself are advocating, and now they have caused a ripple effect in the collective, and now things are happening. And then what happens next, Terry, is up to us as a collective. We utilize our free will, but I'll tell you what's happening, that from what I can see, because I work with these children every day, more and more people are taking their children out of schools. The public system. They are homeschooling them. They are creating pods. They are contacting me for guidance. They are saying enough is enough. I know my child is special in a positive way, and this is a gift, and I will no longer medicate them. I'm taking them out of the doctor's office. Now, I'm not a doctor to do that. I'm just telling you what I see. And this is the massive effect that they are having. It's happening right in front of our eyes, and it's getting more. It's progressing more and more every single day, and they are here to help us as these paradigms collapse, and then they will be here as we rebuild it. And we need each one of them in their beautiful, dynamic way to help us create a new earth, free of indoctrination, free of programming. And that's why I work on New Earth education, so that now when the new children come into this planet, we say, all right, we're not indoctrinating you. We are going to cater and cultivate an environment for you that is ever changing and organic, and you choose what you want to learn and how you want to learn. And it's not a one size fits all approach anymore. It's dependent on the child, the age, where you live, and the parents have input. Everybody has input. It's not this indoctrination setup. It's parents have freedom and the free will, and the children have the free will. So this is a movement, Terry and Erica. And I just scratched the very essence of the iceberg right now. There is so much more to it that I can explain and talk about, because I'm very passionate. But I hope that makes sense, kind of where we are right now.
Personally, I would like to go back to the fact of when we first have our kids, the very first thing that happens is a bunch of people bust into your room with some documents, forcing you to sign things and do things to your children that you do not necessarily want to do. And it's so overwhelming, and they will make it seem like it is the law and that you absolutely have to do these things to your kids. And so I remember that. And then I remember like the circumcision and the birth certificate. Like, I think I just really didn't want to do any of the stuff. But it's in your face, and these nurses are making you feel like you have to do all of these things, all these little shots and things. And then it got to those 18-month-old, 2-year-old injections. And that's when my son stopped counting to 10 and just started going, not. And I was like, not quite sure, because it wasn't like he talked a lot, but it definitely changed him. And that part about what it did for me was, it's funny, when he went to school, his first book bag, I knew what he wanted, because we did, like you said, communicate, like we were very close. And I used to do a lot of eye contact things with him. And school and teachers, I saw some who understood him and some who didn't. But there were just things about school that my son hated, and he expressed it in some ways, but he found it hypocritical. He found the idea of filling out worksheets and asking him the same questions over and over again like foolish. He just did not understand it. He didn't want to do it. So there were just so many things. And so my son got out and got a GED. I would have been able to take him out a lot sooner, but I have another parent to kind of fight with. But I've observed the specialness and the telepathic communication that he has with his other certain family members, and this idea of not not doing what everyone expects. So for me as a parent who wants their kid to go to school, I kind of want him to go to school so he can get it over with, but that whole idea of having to get all A's, like you will learn, they're not going to perform the way you want them to perform. So you can't. So I had to like release all these expectations of certain grades, release expectations of behavior, release these things and know, oh, well, he's still going to be just fine because he's going to end up where he needs to be. But these whole old ideas of what we consider success has to change, right? These expectations and pressures and competition that we have, because I also realized too, like, oh, I can't make this person do anything. They're only going to do exactly what they're so strong-willed. So it could be looked at in the old days, that would be looked at as disobedient and troublesome, but it's not. It's them forcing us to understand, like, you can't make me fit into this system the way that you did, and I'm not going to. And it is going to force us to crumble this system. Like a lot of kids, I think they made it seem as though magnet schools were the answer because they had a lot of outside reasons for the magnet schools, but it was really more of this, right? Because the kids refused to perform in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Sherri, what you think about like the breakout of magnet schools and homeschool. Because people will say, oh, it's because public school sucks, or they just generalize it in this way, but not really go deeply into what exactly is wrong, what is dysfunctional about public school, and having your kids spend more time waking hours with these people than with their own family. So there's just so many reasons. I don't know.
Again, this is so multidimensional, and so there isn't an easy solution, and I want to be honest about that with everybody. Because there's so many layers to this. The system is designed for the parents to. We used to have a one working person in the family. Now it's two, and that's not even cutting it half the time. So the children are placed in school almost as a daycare, which schools are set up as a business. There's a lot of money to be made with each child that's enrolled. So there's so many layers to this. And the public school, I mean, there are marker points that they set forward. But why do they set forward those marker points? So that schools and states can compete with each other to get more money. So again, it's all about money. But at the same time, the schools are generating lists of children with these unique abilities. So don't think that the children in the public schools are not being tested for nefarious reasons as well. The government wants to know what children can do what, which ones are really good at math, which ones are really good at reading, which ones are really good at science. And I don't want to say that to scare anybody, but that's just how the matrix works. They want to know who does what and who's really good at it. So it's not just like they want the best for our children either. There's a lot of dynamics that go into this. And so I think that part of the thing here is a lot of parents are frustrated because they recognize that their children are not thriving in the public school. They don't want to medicate them anymore, and they want something more. But the spouse, one of the spouses, doesn't agree. Like you just mentioned, Erica. I had my ex, his father to battle with, and that's another big issue where one of the parents awakens through this experience of their child being uniquely different. And the other parent is still very much stuck in the matrix. Again, I believe this is by design. We have soul contracts, and we are in different ways. But homeschool, I think that magnets programs and private schools, and we have charter, we call them charter in Florida. I mean, there's lots of different names for different things. Then we have Montessori. I believe that these options were created so that parents could have a choice, because it's my intention to create Aramis Creative Learning Center to generate an alternative. I believe that it's all about choice. And if people are still stuck in the 3D mentality, then they will keep their children in the 3D public schools. But most people are activating and awakening right now, and they want something more. So they're looking for an alternative option. I'm trying to create that alternative option, and there should be more than one. Not everyone's going to resonate with the idea that I have, because mine is very different. And I don't think that children should be tested at all. I don't think that they should be separated by grade and age level. I don't believe in curriculum. I don't believe in majority of what public schools, how they run the school system. So I'm completely contrast to that. It's completely different. But I think that some families might want something in the middle, or some families would like full control. So it's all about choice. I think that that's where we're moving. We're generating, the problem is evident. We're generating different solutions by activating the families and what are they capable of creating for their family. It's not a one size fits all approach. There are homeschool pods, there are charter schools, there are so many different things. But the point is that we have circulation. We're circulating. There is movement. There is shifting occurring. That's the most important. That's the key right now, is that we have movement, because that shows that there are people that want something more, and they recognize that the system is not designed for their child to thrive. So they want something better. So we are in the architect phase, the innovation phase of what do I want as a mother for my children? What does Erica want? Et cetera, et cetera. And we should have the right to choose what that is. And depending on the state you live, Florida is excellent. We can do almost anything we want here. There are children who are deschooled in Florida, and they don't even have any record. They stop school altogether. I don't necessarily believe in that, but I also believe in their right to choose as a family. Perhaps they're farmers and their children work on the farm, and they have specific reasons for it. So the point is, it's all about choice, and we are being given the ability to choose. But there are other states where you could be arrested if your child doesn't go. So again, there isn't a solution for this. It's all about activating, awakening, sharing resources, sharing information, recognizing that there's a problem, and everybody thinks and creates their own, kind of co-creates together what we want to see. Because the more of us that wake up and resist, then the less the system works. And it's all about intention. So the more of us that are activated and say, I want something more, it generates energy, and we co-create something new together. And that's the era we're in right now. 2022 to 2025 is about breakdown and using discernment and developing choices and generating plans. That it's a lot. It's like a washing machine right now. Like, we're all in it together. The old, the new, and everything in between. That's where we are, and it's very chaotic. It's intimidating. It's scary. But to some people, are like myself, look at it as exciting, infinite possibilities, so much potential. That's how I look at it. So it's just depending on your perception and where you are, where you fall on that spectrum right now. But that's where we are. It's very challenging. But if we work together, in a year, 2, 3 years from now, we will start to see everything shift. And 10 years from now, the world could look completely different. And 20 years from now, and so on, we will have a completely different setup for these children. And it starts right now.
It does. John Giada Taylor, I remember watching a video from him, and he was basically saying how what happens is when your kids get mislabeled in school, it tells other children that these kids are not to be mated with. It creates this separation, because now other kids want to separate from these kids, and they become the bottom of society because now you've got this label. And I remember there were really intelligent kids at my school who were super smart, but they weren't going to perform in that same way. And so they get labeled as like deadbeats. And so they look pretty bad, right? They get labeled as a deadbeat. But the idea that we can allow people to be themselves and not necessarily try to squeeze them in these boxes. Like, I have nieces and nephews, and they are very smart people. They don't want driver's license. So do we, like all these different things where we've said that this is what is normal, this is what you have to do. We're trying to remove the idea that everyone has to fit into these certain boxes. And certainly it seems as though the people who were in those special classes that, they call them SAIL or ACE, different, they were tested high score, but didn't seem to be taken care of? Like, where are those kids that were specially labeled as like highly gifted? You don't see that in how their life turned out, if you ask me. So you said there's a reason why they do the testing, and I have thoughts behind that myself, but what are some of the reasons that they are getting that testing? What are they doing with that information? I
Well,
remember taking these tests where you had to do 50 math questions in like 2 minutes or something like that. Remember that stuff? Like, what is the point of all that?
I mean, it depends on how far you want to take this conversation, Erica.
You could take it to the limit, girl. I talk about everything if you want.
Okay. Because I don't want to get any hate mail, and I don't want anybody getting mad at me, because the truth is not is not pretty.
No, it's not.
Well, so the obvious and most prevalent reason is for money. Like I said, these schools compete with each other to get these high test scores so that they can get more money for their county. They have more opportunities for their children, and they have the best equipment and all of that stuff, and the resources. So that's part of it. It's a money grab. The second part of it is that I have been told by children in my sessions on a spiritual level. So this is their soul telling me, not the child themselves, because obviously they wouldn't know, that there are government programs that like to keep tabs on the children that are have certain mindsets and skills and abilities, whether it's very good at math or engineering or science. And so whatever the government shadow programs that they have going on that the most people don't know about, these children are going, they're going, I feel like I'm going to scare some people watching this. And I want to circle back at the end and explain why this isn't scary. They're putting children on lists to indicate, these kids are good at this and we can utilize them for this later, and et cetera, et cetera. That's why I don't believe in labeling, allowing my child to be labeled, because I know that my son or daughter, if I were to have a doctor legally label her with ADHD, for example, or autism, whatever it is, autism 1, doesn't matter. I know that she or he will get funneled into a spreadsheet with a list of ADHD children all over the world. And where it happens to that list is it goes to government programs, and they will use they'll do different things with it. And a lot of it is recruitment. So you asked a very important question, Erica. Where are the children that are special now, that graduated out of the system? Well, they probably were recruited by government programs where, unbeknownst to the parents or the children, and they are in special programs they don't even realize they're in, or it's an astral plane where the children are being connected through the astral realm to connect with their soul, to utilize certain gifts for certain programs. So there's a lot of layers to it as well.
So that makes sense to me, because to me that's like it's like putting out a marker in the matrix. So if we were literally in the matrix and we were literally in these pods, it'd say, here I am, come find me.
It's like your pod. So if you think about the example of the Matrix, their pod would light up green. This pod would light up blue. And the little machines would come and say, oh, I need all the blues today. And so when these little children so it's not necessarily physical. When the children are sleeping and their pod is blue, who knows what they're being recruited to do in the middle of the night in their blue pod or their green pod. It's crazy what happens. So I will never let my child be labeled, but they're going to find out regardless. So my point is, we shouldn't be afraid, because the only reason we know about any of this is because it's being dismantled. So that's the good news here. That's why I wrote my books. That's why I want to speak out about it, and people should know, because all it takes is us saying we don't consent. Because if we don't know it's happening, they have a really tricky way of getting our consent without us realizing it. Easiest example, MK Ultra. We watch shows and there's subliminal messaging, and we willingly watch the show, or we willingly listen to the music, or they have predictive programming in a show that shows some horrible illness is coming, and we all are like, oh, that's just a movie. And then in their mind, they got our consent. They told us what they were going to do. It's a very backwards way. But now, if we know about it and we say, I don't want that, I am not consenting, and we verbalize it, we put that in our intentions, and we collectively come together, those programs can't thrive. They don't work anymore. And that's what's happening right now with 3D influence and interference that I talk about. It's not working anymore because our frequencies are now too high. And the lowering of the frequency to convolute our free will no longer is working. Is this making sense? I want to be clear because this is the most important thing that I want to talk about today, so that nobody walks away afraid of their child and say, oh my God, Sherri, I did take my son to the doctor and he is labeled ADHD. Oh my God. And I don't want anyone to have mom or dad guilt tonight and freak out. What's done is done. Now we move forward and you just say, I do not consent. And we shift the energy, because once we do that, our convoluted free will is no longer convoluted. It's active and we are empowered and we stand in our power. Exactly. You reclaim your power, Dom. Exactly. And all it takes is us being mindful. It's a conscious effort. And now we break down the matrix. It doesn't work anymore. So it's important that we reclaim that power.
No, it's not confusing at all. It's absolutely correct. And yeah, if it causes a little bit of fear, then I'm okay with it as long as a person learns. You know what I mean? Like, better to learn than to not understand. I remember, like I said, taking those tests. I remember being put in a special class. I don't even remember any of my bus rides, so I have no idea. I don't remember why I thought it was 1 year, but it was really more like 2 or 3, but not really remembering any of those sessions in class. But I really think one of the biggest things they're trying to do is not just see your ability, but actually see how obedient you are or how susceptible you are to obedience. Because not only if you have this gift or talent, but can you follow instruction willingly, how coachable you are. Another factor of this, the later on in life, some of us end up going to the military, but not really knowing where the seed was planted. Like, what creates the desire for you to do a certain thing? Then, like a certain family member of mine who had several children, who I believe are all being studied and tracked. She participated in this local experiment where you could come in and you get $100 a week. But at the time she was pregnant, and I'm gonna say that I totally believe that her medical has been tracked ever since the time she participated, and all children that she gave birth to have been tracked as well. So I believe, yeah, there's people will say, oh, the government wouldn't do that. But I mean, for 70 years, they watch people after they injected them with syphilis and have children and die and go blind. For 70 years, they watched the results of that experiment. When people think about Tuskegee, they think it's this short amount of time, but it was long time of watching people just die. So please do not think, there's all these agencies, like we could go way back, where orphanages, they had children in orphanages, and you think, oh, these people are such humanitarians, but instead they were testing out certain products on them, radiation and things like that. Do not be fooled. In prisons, people are being tested. In schools, people are being tested. And one of the most interesting things that you said was about one of your sessions, it had to do with the signals that kids receive while they're in school, and you're wondering, like, why are my kids like batshit losing it, basically? And why are they depressed? And I'm gonna tell you this before you say it. My son came home one day, he said, Orange County Public Schools is against me. And I was like, wow, babe, the whole county? Like, he would say things to me that were mind-blowing, but you have an answer for that.
Yeah, and I really want to get to Matthew's question. I see you, Matthew, and I want to
Matthew.
And I'll get to it in a second because I want to answer your question first, but that's what he's asking is important. This one blew my mind because I had a session with several sessions. I don't even know what came first at this point because it was so long ago. But one of the first times I heard about Voice of God technology was a session with a woman with her young child who was in, I think it was early elementary or preschool, late preschool time frame, and this kid would kick and scream and cry and refuse as soon as they got to the car, would and inconsolable, would not go in, and every day would not calm down after, because sometimes they say, oh, just leave them, and then and the parents, oftentimes the parents will leave and the child will calm down, would never calm down. So this lady reached out to me in desperation because she saw me on an interview, and she said, well, I don't know what to do with him. I think he was like 5 years old. It's been so long now. Anyways, when I connected to the higher self of this child, I was so irate when I learned this, because it came to me like a flood. And I heard voices in my head saying, you're not good enough. And I heard screeching sounds, and you are bad, and your parents don't love you. And all of these crazy affirmations over and over, playing all at the same time in unison. And I was like, what? WTF? What is this? And I was told that it's this voice of God technology that they have, that by the way, they admit to the entire public all the time through satellite technology and all the towers, the phone towers. I don't want to get your channel taken down if I say the specific things, but they do it to us all the time. So that's why a lot of people have thoughts that aren't their own, and depressive thoughts or thoughts of suicide, all of those things. Well, they what's the word I'm trying to think of? Signal the schools. There's grids around the public schools now where they send these. And so children hear them. Now, that wasn't the first time. I've had hundreds of children since then either verbalize, tell me themselves. I hear voices in my head when I go into the school. I hear screeching sounds. I hear these horrible things. And I just couldn't discount it anymore. And so a lot of our children are picking up on it, and they go home. And that's why they're so drained, disconcerted, agitated. And, you're right. The schools are trying to test children on their obedience as well. And that's why they don't like the label. They label the children as outcasts. Something's wrong with them. Medicate them quickly, because they are not conforming. They are not standing in line patiently and being quiet and being good little girls and boys. And they don't like that. So they're also looking at who is easily controllable. And they can tell that through testing, but through the personalities and how willful they are or they're not. So that's the technology that your son was picking up on, and adults can also pick up on it. But children are very keen and pick up on it very easily.
Yeah. Well, two things I'm going to say, and then maybe you answer Matthew's question. This John, oh gosh, John Gatto, he talks about this. Kids are the negative label, so that they're outcasts, so other kids will shun them. That basically it is like the prison system, because it has a bell. You stand in line, you learn how to follow direction, and you kind of like trudge along. It's really basically preparation for jail, just like Dom and some other people said. Now, I watched this movie called Dream Scenario, and so if you don't really understand what Sherri's saying about voice of God technology, this movie it's set like it's just a movie, right? And the students start dreaming about their teacher, and they think it's all funny at first, until they begin to dream that the teacher is murdering them or doing something really bad to them, and then he becomes shunned. Now, the kicker about the end of the movie is they say, it's too bad how he used his power, but we're going to find a way to use this in a better way, because what they wanted to do was run commercials in people's heads while they were sleeping. Mm-hmm. And so, oh my God, he's this terrible guy, but we're going to find a way to tap into people's thoughts and sell them things, music, clothing, and things like that when they're not aware and they're sleeping. So basically, you'd always have commercials on in your head. Kind of like those songs that you remember from when you were 5 years old, and you're like, it's 50 years later, you can still remember these songs, these jingles and things like that. But, so if you don't believe that they got mind control, like they wouldn't even talk about it until they had it, just like cell phones. Most of the things that they talk about on TV, they talk about it, but they've already been working on it. They've already been doing it. So it's not new. Why else were they giving kids LSD and so on back in the day? They've been testing children for so long. Jax was in the twin study. So they were studying twins up in Canada. So yeah, this is real. This is, you're in the right place talking about the right thing. Um, I guess this Matthew's question.
Yeah, I think yes, it was. So great question, Matthew. And again, I think every question you guys have asked me today, this is there are it's layered. So it's not just a one size fits all approach. Because of course, if we all have said, oh, we don't consent, would the matrix break down? Well, yes and no. And so this is the thing. It's all about activating and awakening. And it's a process. We start by learning. Okay, half the battle is understanding. Okay, now we're on to you, dark players, in your game. So now we're paying attention, and now we're going to verbalize we don't consent, or think to ourselves we don't consent. Well, what happens when that occurs? You stand in your power, and your consciousness shifts, and now we elevate in our consciousness. Now we're raising to fourth, fifth density consciousness. And what happens when we do that is we start to project, and we start to perceive a higher frequency reality. And we're above the matrix, not in a hierarchy, just we are seeing above that frequency. Now we're tapping and tuning into a higher frequency. And now none of that delusion works on us anymore. And imagine one person this happens to, two people, hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people. I talked about this at my conference, the conference that I just did at Journey to Truth. And I talked about all of this in my last book. And I talked about it again in this current book. It's like a box. And the more we activate and awaken, there's tiny little holes. Now to the point where the box has no integrity anymore. The box is just like, this lopsided and falling apart and breaking down. So it starts with, I do not consent. But what that leads to, Matthew, is the frequency rising, the illusion breaking down, us influencing the ones that are not activated and not awake in a positive way if they're ready. And everything starts to crumble. And we're seeing that right now. Even people who are still pro certain president and still buying into the lies and the woke agendas and all of those things, even they are having to admit that there are things that they just can't hide anymore. So there's so much evidence, even in the mainstream, that things are breaking down. And the I do not consent is now we're standing in our power, or reclaiming the power, like Don said, and we are activating and we are awakening. So these are shifts that are occurring. And now we're at the point where I believe we are at the point of no return. And my marker point that I've been talking about since Dom, I think, has been watching me in this chat longer than anybody. I don't even remember what I was doing in 2020, but I thank you so much for continuing to support me. But what I've been saying this whole time, my marker point that the ascension is to occur, and we are escalating at a rapid rate, and we are at the point of no return. And we will continue to evolve every single day. And the matrix is breaking down. How do I know this? Because the children would not continue to incarnate. And that is my marker point. They would not continue to come in. And some of these souls are so evolved that they are beyond physical matter. They don't want to come here to help. They want to help, but they don't want to be in the 3D. They don't want to be. That's why we have the Artist Collective. Those souls are so advanced, 11th density beings with no form. They don't want to be anchored in 3D. They don't even want to be here. So they're like, I'll come in just enough to influence humanity in a positive way. So what I'm saying is that's how I truly trust in this process that we are activating. So that I do not consent has led us to a point of no return. And we are at this pivotal point of the trajectory has shifted in such a massive way that there's no going back. When you're awakened, truly, something profound awakens within you, and you can't go back. You can't put your head back in the ground. You can try, but you can't. You'll keep popping back up as much as you resist, because it's easier to stay buried with your head in the ground than it is to keep persevering forward, because we recognize how many times we've been lied to, how much of our reality is built against us. And it actually, as empathetic, compassionate beings that we are, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts to know that they care this much about us. Yes. And so it's part, that's part of it as well. But my point
I'm gonna
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm going to say this because there's this thing called the Flynn effect. So as you begin to increase your intelligence and your understanding, it's just like anchoring in the light. So each one of us is anchoring in this light of truth, that the Flynn effect states that we affect 6 people. And then so now as those 6 people are affected, each one of them affects 6 people. So this is it's not like a linear change. This is I forget the word for that, exponential. So this is exponential change. Now, if I wasn't anchoring in the truth where I am, now I remember 2020, I said a lot of stuff. Now in 2024, when my sister comes to me and says, "Did you know?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But I make space for her. But if I hadn't have anchored in the truth where I am, it wouldn't have made room for her to anchor it in where she is. You see what I'm saying? Like, so we are connecting the dots. So it definitely is a process. And I know people say people should hurry up and think that this is a rush plan. But it's when you have this size population on this size of planet, trust that the forces that be have done a very good job in trying to break the connection. This is what they have to keep spraying the air with these electrons that are going against God. Particles are coming through the air all the time. So we're receiving from him. So they have to spread this net to block and insert to keep us at a certain level. But it's getting to the point where people are plainly seeing things that before we did not see. Like, how do we not see Barbara Bush actually literally looks like a man? I'm sorry, I'll just say that. Like, there's just certain things that we're just taking for granted because we're just going along, trying to get a better job, trying to finish school, trying to get a bigger house, living from holiday to holiday, just this thinking about these regular things. And then we started asking ourselves these questions and say, why do I spend more time at work than I do with my own family? Why do I spend so much money on a home that I never get to spend time in? What about the fact that my son only spends an hour with me in the car, an hour with me when we, on the ride home, and then one more hour eats dinner and has to go to bed and go back and be raised by people that don't know him? Mm-hmm. We start to ask ourselves these questions. What the hell is going on with, even buying a casket? It costs $20,000, the price of a car for a person that's dead. Why are we doing any of the crazy things that we're doing? And we have to just start looking at everything that we're doing. And we're doing it, though. And it's happening. And like she says, we're making room, because when you open a door, somebody else is going to follow you through. You're leaving a trail, definitely leaving a trail. And by no means is it pointless, useless, or a waste of time what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Whew, it's so much that he wrote that it covered your whole face. Good God. No absolute fact to reaching critical mass. Right. Well, that's just going to have to take the power of believing, I think. It's going to take the power of believing.
I think we're so programmed to be so logical and so left brain about everything. And I think the more we shift in consciousness, we recognize that there are other marker points, and we just feel it and we just know things. And I think it's all about perception. So I do believe that there is a split occurring in frequency and as well as consciousness. And there are some people that refuse and are anchoring into this reality, and they want to stay here, and they don't. And they're pushing a lot of people and motivating a lot of people to awaken and activate because they don't want to remain in that frequency. So there really is a divide in the consciousness of humanity, of those that want to remain and are not ready, and those that are ready for something new and are ready and willing to make the change. So there's a lot of perceptions, and depending on the reality that you're tapping into and what perspective you are looking from, is it neutral? Is it fiery? Is it hopeful? Is it hopeless? It's going to alter your belief. And so it's like trying to convince everybody in the world of 8 billion people all to think the same thing. It's not going to happen. People are going to have to, and that's okay.
And some people aren't here to get it. Some people are here for you to get it. You know what I mean? Some people aren't here to get it. and maybe they have a second chance or a third chance, because if we believe what I believe, we've been here more than once, and many of us are just getting it. And some of us came back because we thought, hell, for shits and giggles, let's see what happens. Let's try it one more time. You know what I mean? Just, and so, I mean, there becomes that individual basis on as long as right? Because now, once if I watch TV and I'm like, why is it every time I watch Breaking Bad, I want KFC or some damn honey buns? And I was like, oh my God, it's because of the chicken that they're frying in the background, because they're always talking about the chicken man. And I'm like, oh, so now it doesn't affect me anymore. Now I can actually move through life a little bit differently if I understand. Oh, do you even know what subliminal messages are? Like, it changes the way that you receive the message. Or driving past McDonald's and I smell that smell that I know is fake, because they have to pump out with this machine this freaking smell at McDonald's. You know what I mean? That says, oh, stop. Because let me tell you, when you eat McDonald's and your car now is funky, it stinks, it smells nothing like that smell that was at the building. And if you work at Subway or even worked at McDonald's and smell your clothes afterwards, you smell like straight garbage, right? So there has to be something that they do to make people want this. Like, this manipulation is real. And now once you understand it, you're like, maybe I don't want McDonald's today, because I think that was actually, I'm eating garbage today.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, the more you pay attention. Like, have you noticed that movies, in every scene, half the time someone's either drinking coffee or they're drinking wine with their dinner, or smoking? Like, it's like, they're trying, the next thing you know, you're drinking, you're like, I want a cup of coffee now, or I want a glass of wine. It's just there. It's, once you see it, it's you.
And those reality shows are they're pumping people up with that alcohol. I was noticing that on those reality dating shows. They're like, oh, wine.
Yeah.
And I do drink wine, but still, I'm just saying, I don't need somebody pushing my buttons to do it. If I want wine, let me have my wine. I don't need you telling me to drink wine or to smoke cigarettes. Honestly, I think people could take a look at Mad Men, because that's really what that show is really about. Mad Men, because they're advertisers and it's really talking about it. But here it is. How many shows have we had that told us what they were doing the whole time? Like, there's shows about people making shows to manipulate you.
Yes.
It's funny.
Yeah. And Matthew's right. The truth is, we know nothing. And I wrote that exact thing in my book. It's, what do we know? What do we really know? And one of my favorite meme, it's not even a meme. I guess it's a meme, where it's like a pie graph, and it's like 95% of it's white. And then there's two little slivers. One says what we know, and then what we don't know, what we know, what we don't know, what we don't know that we don't know. And it's like 95%.
Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know, because you don't know
half of what's happening. We just speculate, we formulate our opinions. It's all based on perception. And that's why I don't believe in one truth, because everybody has the right to have their truth, and it's valid to you. So I agree with Matthew exactly with that. We don't know. We don't know shit. That's what if we want to say. That.
Have you ever seen Wreck-It Ralph?
So long ago. I don't even. Yeah.
Okay, so Wreck-It Ralph is the bad guy in the video game, but at the end of the night, he goes to Bad Guys Anonymous, and they're like, Ralph, you're a bad guy, but you're not a bad guy. And so at the end of the day, when the game is over and we unplug, I mean, I really think there's a turnaround time where we'll be like, yeah, we really did a good job in there. We raised hell. You know what I mean? Like, we, whatever we think it is and whatever it is, ultimately, I mean, I still believe we are just these divine beings that are connecting back to source. So I don't know, should we be riled up or not riled up? But let us be aware, because I like winning the game. And I think it's what we're trying to do, is how do we win the game? And you're just saying with awareness.
Yeah, with awareness, going within and just taking responsibility for yourself. That's all you can do. We can't control everybody else. So we take responsibility for our own healing, forgiveness, going within, soul searching, just what's your role? What is everybody watching this? What's your role in all of this? And that's it. That's all you can control. And our thoughts project out. And are you projecting with your thoughts, with your words, with your action, something positive to lift up the collective and the vibration, or are you part of the problem? And some of us have to admit that we have been part of the problem just by our negative thoughts. And I've been there too. And so it's all about taking control and reclaiming that power that we have and our sovereignty, which is what my latest book is all about. And I give lots of ways to do that. So just, we can't control everybody else, but we can control ourselves, and our reaction to everything that's happening around us. And I try to have as much of a neutral perspective as possible, because the more neutral you are, then the less emotion we have, less emotionally charged we are. We're allowed to be emotional because we're emotional beings, but some of us allow our emotions to take over, and we think from our emotions, and then we are in that fight or flight. We need to shift to the parasympathetic mode, where we have endorphins, we have dopamine in our system, all the feel-good hormones, so that we can think with clarity through the right brain and go connect with our intuition. And that takes practice and diligence. It's an easy thing.
I'm gonna tell Matthew he scratches his head from the inside because he's just that deep. He's got to go all in and out because he's like, just hear me out. But yeah, he's this guy we could talk to for like 8 hours and he'll still be talking. But that means the totality of all consciousness is diluted down within us, and yet belonging to know its own. Oh yeah, belonging to know its own substance, God within God. True. But that's the complexity of being a multidimensional being, right? The parts that we want to participate in, the fights we want to fight, and then the parts we want to, just be. So we can't go there too far with you, Matthew. Anyway,
we'll be here all night.
We'll be here all night. So what are some takeaways that you would definitely like to reiterate to get people back on track with what you want people to get from this interview?
Well, if we're talking about children, our youth, regardless if you have children or not, you might be a teacher and have no children, or your children are grown, or you're just you just care about children in general at large, and you don't have any children. The point is that this is activating and awakening all of us, and they are here for a reason. And as soon as we start limiting them and placing them in these boxes, and we recognize that they're here to break down all paradigms, all boxes, and for all of us, because I don't believe anybody should be in a box. I should be Sherri, and that's it. And Erica should be Erica. And who cares about what we're capable of or what we're not capable of? We are who we are, and that's where we're going. And that's what these children are trying to teach us. And so we're not in this one size fits all approach anymore. We are who we are individually, and how we communicate and integrate collectively. That's our free will. That's where we're headed, and without being interfered with. So the issue of dislabeling children is not juvenile. This is not a small thing. This is a big thing that's going to lead to big changes as soon as people awaken to the idea that we have been lied to, and these children are here as beautiful volunteers to activate something in the core of all of us, so that it breaks our foundation and our programming, and we are open to the idea of what is possible. And that's all. It's like Matthew, we don't have to have the answers to everything. I think that's what the children are here to teach us. We don't need to know everything. And if we did, we wouldn't be in here. We wouldn't be incarnating. We come in here to have an experience, and that experience is unique and individual per the person, but collectively we need to unite and work together and allow each other authentically to experience with boundaries and parameters, so that we're not hurtful for each other. There's so much that we have to learn. So ultimately, I hope this conversation enlightens and opens people's mind to the possibility that perhaps if we stop labeling and we take control of how our children are educated, and we create a new system, we will change the future generations to be more balanced mindful, creative, intuitive, and abundant than we have ever seen. But it starts right now with us advocating for them as the adults and supporting them and listening, because they are way smarter than we give them credit for. And I think they just need to be heard in whatever way they are authentically able to express themselves. And if that's all that people get out of this conversation, then I think that's enough. But I think that that's a really good starting point to where we are as a collective right now, and how what I just mentioned relates to just about anything happening in our reality. All stems from that. It's all about control and breaking free from control.
I totally, I'm with you, and I'm thinking, sometimes people say, well, they don't believe in God, and my argument with that is like, I'd rather believe in God and be wrong than not believe in God and be right. So say this is just a game and nothing we do matters. I'd rather care about things and be wrong than to not care about the right things and totally miss the mark. And I hope that makes sense to you, what we're saying, because you could say, oh, this has no meaning and it's all just a mirage, or and how deeply we take it with the mirage thing is where we could miss the mark, because yeah, there's going to be this flow, but I'd still rather flow into this one pond where of consciousness and awareness than to fall into just ignorance and bliss, I guess is what I would say. I'm going to show, this is your website for people who want to reach Sherri. I don't know if you have any classes coming up soon. I know you
Yeah,
got the book.
we have the mentors are taking summer break, so we will have classes starting again in August for adults and children. On my website for sherridivband.com, I am offering a few classes in August, animal communication and automatic writing. So that's separate of Aramis. Those are things that I'm teaching. So I have that coming up. And then, yeah, both of my books are available or all of my books are available on Amazon. Check out the new one, because I really feel like it's divinely timed right now. I feel like it's time for people to embrace the things that I put in it, and I think that it will help a lot of people. So I'm excited about it.
Wow, you do amazing things, because every time I talk to you, I learn something different. And so there's even pregnancy coaching on
Yeah, because I
there.
did hypnobirthing, and so I bring elements of that back. I want to say something really quickly. Erica, you said something important. A lot of youth are saying they don't believe in God right now. I hear it every single day, and my son, who's 19, says it too. And I just want to say that I believe the reason why they are expressing in that way is that the notion of God in the 3D has become so convoluted, and it's so dogmatic the way that it's been portrayed, that I think a lot of the children are coming in recognizing that it's been wrong. And there is a God, but it's a frequency that resides in all of us. And they have stolen that from us. And they are trying to make us believe that God is outside of us. And it's a he, or is it a she? And I think the reason children are rebelling against it is because they have programmed us to believe in something that is false, when in reality, God is so much bigger and grander than they have limited God to us. And they're like, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that knowledge, that notion. Just like they don't want to use our words, they don't believe in that God. But if you sit and talk to them and use different words, they still believe God exists, just not in the way that we are told here in the 3D. So they have so much wisdom.
Right. No more angry and jealous God, right? No more
Exactly.
stamping out your generations and all that really fun stuff that they talked about. Yeah. Okay, well, Terry, I don't know if you had any final words or
No, Sherri, I just, we just touched on things, but this is such a deep subject. And thank you for trying to bring it to a point where we can all sort of put it together and open our minds to just the way that things are shifting, and that we see it. And it's not what we see isn't always, we can't judge what we're seeing. So when we look at an autistic child, we have to realize that. Thank you for what you're doing. And it's just the viewpoint that we have, because we see it. Our society has thought of it as taxing us, but they're really here. They really are what's going to break the system, because they are taxing the system with it, right? So yeah, thank you for just all the marvelous work you do, and for sharing today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's amazing too, because I guess people aren't really looking for messages from these children. And so, I mean, and there's a lot in Egypt too, and they don't even have them in school, no sensory training, no nothing. And I'm hoping that one day we could take like a team of people to help find out what the messages these children have. Like that would be an amazing thing, to come together with people to figure out what are the messages that the children have for us, because I think that's definitely one part of what you're bringing to us that is definitely overlooked. They have messages and they have a reason for it all. And I thank everybody for hanging out with us in the future, past and present. And wow. And so Allie says she's going to be a paraprofessional, and it's coming soon. But I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to reading your books and seeing you at the conference soon and hanging out with you. It's always fun. I'm always learning something new about you. And it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we got to stick by it and stick to it, and now we're going to make it through it. Hey, I just made that up. Anyway, I'll probably never be able to do that one again. But thanks everybody, and thank you so much, Sherri, for your time and making a point to make sure that we have this conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was honored to be on your guys' show, and thank you to everybody watching. Everyone in the audience was so nice, and I like it when everyone is just cohesive and just happy to be together. So thank you.
I know. I was wondering, has anyone tried to throw a tomato at you?
I don't think so.
You seem like so. Have you had a bad audience before?
Well, no, I just when you're in like certain channels, sometimes when you do live, you just get trolls. And you never, you know what I mean? There's a lot of trolls, especially on YouTube, and they'll just say really nasty things. And
I think people don't like that, because if they come here, I would talk shit to you live right here online and be like, you need to get the flip off my. I will do it. They've seen me do it before, so. But nah, we don't bring that energy over here. Nah, you rowdy kids, get off my lawn. Hey, you guys, and please like and share, especially this video, but like and share, and help me get subscribers. Help us get to 1,000. Help us get to 1,000. And we're not going to do as many as normal, like once a week, because we've been kind of grinding it out. And we're going to do it like once every 2 weeks, maybe. But still, help us get to 1,000, because we got over 200 really good videos on this channel that can be shared. So, and this is one of them. So let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. So we're going to ride out with our, we're going to get on our spaceship and get flown right on out of here.